in the garage today. Back in the garage today. Get in the garage. Back in the garage today. What's going on, guys? Back in the garage today, working on my 2016 KTM 1290 Super Adventure. It's quarantine time. I'm about 2,000, maybe a little bit less than that, short of the next major service interval on my bike. So figured I'd go ahead and work on it right now since I've got some downtime. One of the things that I need to do is change the coolant. It's recommended you change that every 4 years. That's what we're gonna do today. You might be able to see behind me, I've already taken the tank and everything off the bike. That's what the service manual calls for. Can you do it without taking the tank off? Not real sure, don't really care because I've got to get in, pop valve covers and stuff today anyway. And you may notice I've removed the crash guards, which again, you don't have to do to remove the tank, but I kind of need to get to that front valve cover when I get to working on that today. But I'm going to show you guys how to change the coolant on one of these machines, so let's get to it. All right, so starting out on the left-hand side of the bike, radiator here, and we've got an 8mm bolt we need to take out, get some sort of bucket. I will admit I did mine out of order. I did the other side first just because I messed up. But we're going to drain this first. Make sure your radiator cap is removed, and that's about it. All right, so over here on the right-hand side of the bike, first thing we need to do is drain the coolant out of the bike. Right here, this is the bolt you're going to take out. It's pretty easy to tell. There's a copper crush washer back here. We're probably going to make a little bit of a mess. I've got a bucket here to catch some stuff. There should be about 3 liters of coolant in the bike. This is only going to hold about 2 liters, so I'll drain some out, put the plug back in, dump this, and go from there. We'll see. This is not going to be the cleanest thing ever. And I should have said this is a 8mm head on this bolt. Now, while it doesn't call for it, while we're waiting on the rest of this coolant to drain out, your radiator hoses, you got one here and you've got a big one over on the other side. Just my recommendation, you want to keep them lasting a long time, grab some silicone and a paper towel or a rag and just go ahead and spray some silicone on these things, get them all shined up. It'll just keep their flexibility a little bit better, make them last a little bit longer, and make them look a little bit better. Give you a before and after shot of the main radiator hose here, which then splits off into 2. This is the before. And then here's the after. The hose basically looks brand new again. So this is the drain bolt and the copper crush washer. You've got a couple of options here. You can either flip this crush washer and reuse it, or what I recommend is picking up one of these sets of copper crush washers. They make them specific to KTM and they're made by Bolt. You get a pack of these and they ought to last you quite a few years. I'm going to go ahead and use a new one on mine. And then this gets torqued back down to 10 Newton meters. So before we put the drain bolt back in, which is going to be torqued to 10 Newton meters, you see you've got a little crush washer here. I'm going to go ahead and replace this, or if you want, you can just flip it over and reuse it. Over here on the left-hand side of the bike, we need to remove this bleeder screw. Again, we're dealing with an 8mm, or if you want to get a Torx, I think it's a Torx 30 or Torx 27-bit. Let's get this removed. All right, so next up, we need to remove the bleeder screws from the cylinder heads. This is going to be a little tough to see. It's going to be... You see these 3 right here? It's going to be the top left one is the one that we need to take out. Again, 8mm, and I'm on the right-hand side of the bike right now, so let me get that one removed, and then we'll go back over to the left-hand side of the bike. Should note these bleeder screws have these little rubber seals on them. Either replace them or put a little silicone or a little bit of grease or something on them to make sure they stay nice and rubbery. Now over on the left-hand side of the bike, I'm going to have to cut this zip tie to just kind of rotate this heat shield up out of the way so we can access the bleeder screw. The one on this side is going to be a little bit trickier to show, but if you see where the hose goes in right here, and you see this bolt right up above it, you can kind of see it there where my wrench is. Right there, that's the one you need to take out. And now with this bleeder screw out, we can start adding some coolant back into the machine. All right, so when it comes to what type of coolant I'm going to use the MotorX Coolant M3.0. It's already pre-mixed. It's what KTM recommends. It's what came in the bike. You can use whatever you want in it, but just make sure that it meets the spec. Basically what we're gonna do now is, and I'll show you guys as I'm doing it, it calls for 2.4 liters. I went ahead and bought 3 liters of it. We're gonna start pouring this down into the top of the radiator, and then those bleeder screws we took out on the cylinder heads, we're gonna keep an eye on those. Once the coolant starts flowing out of there without bubbles, we're good to go. We can put the bleeder screws back in and get the bike button back up. So while you could just use the pour spout on here, I went ahead and got a funnel. I'm gonna pour it in this way. Nope, we already got some pouring out. All right, on to container number 2. All right, so I'm starting to get it flowing out over here already, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that bleeder back in because it's definitely flowing out without bubbles right now. Okay, so I went ahead and put the vent screw back in, or the bleeder screw back in over on the left-hand side of the bike. It was flowing out of there really well. We're gonna keep an eye on this one here on this side as we go ahead and continue to add some more coolant. And now it's pouring out of that one, definitely without any bubbles. So we're gonna go ahead and put that bleeder back in. I'm gonna wipe everything down, and then we're gonna go ahead and totally fill up the radiator to the top. Also, I don't know if I mentioned it already, 10 newton meters of torque on those bleeder screws. All right, so with both of the cylinder bleeders back in, we're gonna go ahead and continue to fill this thing up. Little too much. All right, now with that filled up, I'm gonna go back over and put the top one back in on the top of the radiator. We're also gonna fill up the overflow just somewhere between the min and max, and then we're basically done. All right, we got all the bleeder screws back in. We got the radiator full with the cap back on. We've got somewhere between the min and max there on the overflow. All right, guys, so that's how you change the coolant on one of these KTM adventure bikes. Now, I will tell you, I do have one more step I need to do because it did not take anywhere near 2.4 liters, which tells me I probably, despite my best efforts, still have a decent size air bubble in there. So once my new cam chain tensioners come in, I can put my engine back together. I'm just gonna set the fuel tank down on top of the bike and go ahead and hook up the fuel lines, but I'm not gonna totally put the bike all the way back together because I'm still gonna need to be able to get to the radiator to top it off further. So I'm gonna put the tank back on, I'm gonna fire the bike up, let it run a little bit, take the radiator cap off before you turn the bike on. That will allow that bubble or whatever air you have in there to push through. Once that's pushed through and you've got the bike warmed up, you can take the tank back off the bike, top off your radiator, and then you should be good to go. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider hitting that subscribe button, because if you like motorcycles, well, this is the place to be. If you have any questions about this process, let me know down in the comments section below. I'll do my best to try to answer them. And as always, I'll talk to you again soon. Just a little update since I've got the bike back together. I went ahead and put the tank back on it. I didn't hook up everything, just the fuel lines, and I let it run. We did end up having to put some more coolant down in here. Let it run again with the radiator cap off. Let it cool down a little bit, take the tank off, and then check your level and fill it up if you need to.